Next, which hypothesis test to use? Okay, let's say for example, did senior high school student improve their performance from fundamentals of ABM1 to fundamentals of ABM2? A sample of 20 senior high school students who took the fundamentals of ABM1 and 2 had their final grades in the two courses compared. So the grades of the students in fundamental Fab 1 and Fab 2 are being compared. Okay, hence a t-test between two population means should be implemented because the sample size is only 20. Okay, so the mean grades of 20 students will be compared. The type of t-test depends on whether the variances are assumed equal or unequal. So your null hypothesis will be mu1 equals mu2, and then your HA mu1 is not equal to mu2. Okay, are UMS students more likely to be left-handed than the students in the other strands? According to NSO, 10% of the Filipinos are left-handed. Is majority of the UM students left-handed. A sample of 50 UM students are surveyed. Okay, so the aim is to compare the unknown percentage of the left-handed people to a sample. Hence, a z-test for the proportion of sufficiently large sample is needed. Okay, because you need to have 50 UM students as are surveyed, so we will be using z-value. Okay, so the proportion of left-handed UM students will be tested. This will require a one-side test since it wants to answer if there are more left-handed people than the unknown proportion. So your null hypothesis, P is equal to 0.10, and your HA, P is greater than 0.10. Okay, now, next, 30 male STEM students and 30 female STEM students were surveyed about their weights. The researcher wonders whether the males are the most 4 pounds heavier than the females. So the aim is to compare two sample means and to confirm a specific difference. Hence, a z-test for the difference of two means of sufficiently large samples is needed. Since the sample is large enough, even if the variances are unknown, the sample variances are enough to perform the z-test. Okay, so your null hypothesis, mu sub 1 minus mu sub 2 equals 4, and then mu sub 1 minus mu sub 2 less than 4. Okay, 50 ABM and 50 UM students are surveyed. Is there enough evidence to say that there are less students who prefer to have a Saturday class schedule from ABM than UMs? So the aim is to compare two sample proportion. Hence, a z-test for difference of two proportion of sufficiently large sample is needed. Since the sample is large enough, the proportion are enough to perform the z-test. So P sample proportion sub 1 minus sample proportion sub 2 is equal to 0. So P hat sub 1 minus P hat sub 2 is greater than 0. Okay, so testing the hypothesis. Did the senior high school student improve their performance from the fundamentals of ABM1 to fundamentals of ABM2? A sample of 20 senior high school students who took the fundamentals of ABM1 and 2 had their final grades in the two courses compared. So your null hypothesis and your alternative hypothesis, your null hypothesis is mu1 equals mu2, and then your alternative hypothesis is mu1 is not equal to mu2. So let's say that the alpha is 0.05, the variances are unequal, and we have the sample means 85.45 and sample mean 2 80.61. The standard deviation is 8.68, and the standard deviation of the second is 8.7. So this gives the t score, which is equal to 1.756, to be compared with the critical score negative 2.0262 and 2.0262. Okay, so the computed t score is between the critical t scores. Hence, the null hypothesis should not be rejected. So there is not enough evidence to say that the fundamentals of ABM1 and the fundamentals of ABM2 scores are different. Okay, next, are UM students more likely to be left-handed than the students in the other strands? According to the NSO, 10% of the Filipinos are left-handed. Is majority of the UM students left-handed? A sample of 15 students, UM students are surveyed. So the result, okay, based on the null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis that we have, so the result, let's say that the alpha is 0.05 and the sample has 9 left-handed people. Okay, so your p hat will be 0.18 and then your q hat will be 0.82. So when you say p hat, you're referring to the sample proportion. So it gives us the z-score 1.8856 to be compared with the critical z-score of 1.6449. So the computed score is more than the critical score. This means that the HO should be rejected. So there is enough evidence to say that more than 10% of the students are left-handed. Next is the solution for the third problem. 30 male STEM students and 30 female STEM students were surveyed about their weights. The researcher wonders whether the males are the most 4 pounds heavier than the females. So we have mu1 minus mu2 equals to 4, and then mu1 minus mu2 less than 4. Okay, so let's say that the alpha is 0.2, and then the sample means are 104.8 and 98.48. Then the standard deviations are 3.14 and 5.2. So this gives us the z-score, which is 2.0919, to be compared with the critical score of negative 2.0537. So since the computed z is greater than the critical z-score, we failed to reject HO. So there is not enough evidence to say that the male STEM students, so fail to reject HO meaning you need to accept your HO. So there is not enough evidence to say that the male STEM students are at most 4 pounds heavier than the female students. Then the last problem, 50 ABM and 50 UM students are surveyed. Is there enough evidence to say that there are less than students who prefer to have a Saturday class schedule from ABM than UMs? Okay, so your null hypothesis will be sample proportion 1 minus the sample proportion 2 equals 0, and then the alternative hypothesis will be p hat 1 minus p hat the alternative hypothesis will be p hat 1 minus p hat 2 less than 0. So let's say that the alpha is 0.02, and then 15 out of 50 like Saturday classes from the ABM, while 29 out of 50 likes it. So hence your sample proportion will be 0.30, and the sample proportion of the second one will be 0.58, and it gives 0.44. Okay. So to compute for the z-score is negative 2.8024, while the critical z is negative 2.0537. So since the computed z is less than the critical z, then the null hypothesis should be rejected. So there is enough evidence to say that there are less than students from ABM who like Saturday class than those students from the UMs. That's all. Thank you.